During this pandemic, we've seen a massive uptick in anxiety and depression throughout the entire population of the world. So in Ontario, Canada, where I'm from, we actually have had over 200% increase in calls to suicide hotlines. And it even got to the point where they actually implemented a new number to make room for all the people who are suffering from suicidal tendencies. And on top of that, they recently just released a study that said, like, due to lockdown, at least 70% of adolescents have experienced something that's clinically able to be diagnosed as depression. So 70% of young people are suffering from this, right? So almost all of us. As we know by now, I actually suffer from anxiety on occasion, and one of the things that I did a couple months back was magic mushrooms. And I realized during this magic mushroom trip, I could actually sense that there was just a greater anxiety in the air. I remember just sitting on the couch thinking, like, it's just a damn shame that so much anxiety out there, that like I could feel it in the air. I could feel that something had changed from like the last time that I was able to sense energies and vibes and vibrations and things like that. I could actually feel the essence, the aura of our society is more anxious. So what we're going to be talking about today is some ways to overcome anxiety in the wake of COVID-19, in the wake of coronavirus, in the wake of all these lockdowns and the pandemic. How is it that we're actually going to take this increased anxiety that most of us feel and reduce it and manage it? So this is something that hopefully will be very important for you and hopefully will help you out. So first of all, let's understand, why do you have anxiety? What is it that you're feeling anxious about? Is it the fact that everything closed down for a bit and you don't have money and now you're more in debt and now you don't know where the next paycheck's going to come from? You're unemployed. Is it something in that range? Or is it something that I have suffered with, which is fear that you're going to get it and fear that you're going to be very sick with it and potentially even die with it? This is something that is definitely helped along by news sites who are trying to incite panic. This is something that a lot of people have. It's like you're worried about who has coronavirus. Like you're out in public, you're like, hey, is this person coughing? Is this person sneezing? Like, why is this person not wearing their mask? Why is this person not doing this, right? A lot of people also go through this as well. Or maybe it's you're worried for someone else. Maybe you're worried about a family member who is more at risk than you are, and you're worried, like, damn, like if they get it, what's that going to make for me? Like, what's that going to happen? Are they going to overcome it? Things like that. And you're worried about like the what if this happens? Or maybe you have anxiety over the fact that we now know the government at any time can take away your freedoms and take away all of your livelihood, the dignity you have as a human being. They're able to take that away in the name of public health. Or maybe it's something completely unrelated to what I said, but you do notice an uptick in anxiety, and whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're suffering with. We're happy to add that in, you know. Outside of that, here's how we're going to deal with getting rid of anxiety around these certain things. So first of all, number one thing that we need to worry about, which is for all of this, if you're running out of money, if you're worried about coronavirus, if you're worried about someone else getting coronavirus, no matter what it is, here is number one, what we need to do. Stop watching the news, okay? The news is complete trash. It's not there to keep you informed. It's not there to tell you about what's going on. The news is a business first and foremost, okay? And what they need is you to watch. If you don't watch the news, they don't get ad revenue and they don't survive. So their job is to keep you watching. And the best way to keep you watching is to tell you that things are bad. There's a new variant. No one knows what's going to happen with this. You know, this is collapsing, you know? This is the job of the news. There's literally nothing good that comes from watching it, okay? I was actually fully on board with this whole coronavirus, like, oh, it's being a scary thing, until I was watching the news one day with my parents, because they watch it. I personally just think it's trash. I don't find it interesting. And I was watching it and saw Dr. Sanjay Gupta was being interviewed by someone, and they were asking him about the coronavirus and all this. And I don't know a lot about medical stuff, okay? I'm not claiming to be a doctor or anything like that. But what I do know is people, okay? I started out as a copywriter. I work in marketing, and I could just see that this guy was lying. And I know people very well. That's one thing I do know that I am good at. And this guy was just lying, okay? This guy was lying, and he's like, oh, it's like super scary, da, da, da. He's like, you could tell like he's digging into his memory, like, what's the best thing to say right now? He may technically be a doctor, but don't listen to him. He is a shill for big corporations. Yeah, he's complete trash. Outside of that, I also got to see a little clip with Chris Como explaining what it was like for him to have coronavirus, because everyone was like, oh, like, you're doing a great job, Chris, like, what you caught it, now you get to share what you're going through. And pretty much I saw in the news, again, I'm a copywriter, I'm someone who knows how to tell stories, I'm someone who knows how to structure things so that people pay attention to them. And so one of the things as well is Chris Como guy, he got the Rona, and he was explaining to the news anchors from home, from his basement, he's like, what's it like, Chris Como? And instead of him just being like, yeah, it's pretty tough, here's what I'm going through, here's where I'm at, like, I'm tired, I'm this, da-da-da. Instead of him doing this, he actually was like, I want you to imagine that you are a single mom and you have kids at home and you can't be near your kids and you can't raise them and you have a 18-month-old daughter. You need to help her out, but you can't, and you don't have money and you can't leave the house and you lost your job. And every single thing that he was doing was literally just designed to instill fear, right? And it was complete trash, and I honestly think he should, like, news people should probably go to jail for what they did in this whole situation. But he was elevating the fear level, okay? He wasn't telling you something to keep you informed. He was telling you something to keep you afraid. And that is the entirety of what the news is, okay? And they're dying. They may have talked a lot of shit on Donald Trump, but that was like the best 4 years of their life. Now there's nothing for them to talk about. So they're going to just keep coming up with new things to make you be like, oh, look, here's the next problem. The news, the doctors on the news are talking about the new Delta variant. The new Delta variant is way more contagious. It's way more lethal. It's not. It's bullshit, okay? Everything that they say is bullshit. So don't watch the news at all, okay? If there's something going on that you need to be informed about, you're gonna find a way to be informed about it. So, for example, 9/11, 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center, a plane crashed into the Pentagon, and 1 ended up in the field. If you didn't watch the news, would you have heard about this? Absolutely. If something important is happening in the world, you're gonna hear about it. You don't need to sit there watching the news. You don't need to get updated on all the bullshit that these people are saying, because literally you're just turning on the news, you're just being given propaganda to watch, okay? It's complete trash. Turn it off. There's nothing good that's going to keep you informed there, and it's all done under the agenda to keep you afraid, which is going to keep your anxiety levels high. You can keep watching if you want, but what you have to keep in mind is you're getting information that isn't real information. It's designed to make you feel something. And if you would rather be informed of this garbage versus getting rid of your anxiety, then keep watching it. But if you stop watching the news, you are going to alleviate your anxiety because that's how things work. Next thing to stop worrying about COVID is stop thinking about COVID, okay? Look, we've been dealing with this for over a year now, okay? We have a lot of information on who's at risk, who's not at risk. At the beginning of this whole situation, it was like, oh, we don't know what's gonna happen, like who's gonna die. We thought like maybe 20% of people would die or something like that. We didn't know what was going to go down. Now we know. It's very dangerous for people who are in a specific, if they're older, if you're vitamin D deficient, things like that. Then you have something to worry about, okay? But what you need to do is you don't need to always be kept informed, like what's Delta variant doing? What's gonna happen if I get it, okay? So the way that we deal with this is there's certain specific things that you can do to help manage your surroundings COVID, okay? And besides that, you need to just let it go, stop thinking about it, and leave it to God, okay? Worrying about it past a certain point is no longer going to help you. So there's some things called productive worry and there's some things called unproductive worry. If we keep ruminating on COVID and what we're gonna do and what happens if we get it and what's all this. If we keep worrying about it, then that is unproductive worry, okay? The only productive worry is like, okay, this thing exists, what are we gonna do about it? And so from there, handle what needs to be handled. So to get your vitamin levels tested, see if there's any vitamin D or anything that you need. You do things to boost your immunity, such as like exercise, go outside, get out into nature and things like that. If you were to get COVID, do everything that you can to prevent COVID, okay? So wash your hands, take vitamin D, supplement with that. Get the vaccine if you want to do that, or get some other thing that's been shown to treat COVID. Do what you can. Use your worry to be like, oh, this is serious. What can I do about it right now? What action can I take to make sure I'm gonna be good? And then from there, we can't control the entire world. Worrying about it, ruminating on it is not going to help us control this more, okay? It's just gonna make us more stressed, actually reduces our immune system. So worrying about it is the worst thing that you can do. Handle it, do what you need to do, and then from there, let it go. And then the next thing, also keep in mind to think things through logically. So this goes back to the news, this goes back to like all the people in our lives. They're going to be approaching us with emotion. They're going to be approaching us with fear. And what you need to do is actually look at things logically. You can reduce your fear of stuff by actually calculating, okay, what's the percentage likelihood that this is going to happen, that something's going to go bad for me, okay? We can calculate all that, and we actually have some pretty good numbers in terms of COVID on being like, okay, how serious is this situation for me specifically? And once we know who this is, we can actually be like, okay, how likely is it that something bad is going to happen here? So let's use an example of people who are afraid of flying, okay? This is a large chunk of the world. They just don't like getting on airplanes, and they're scared, like, oh, what happens? The fear of this is completely normal. It's like, yo, if a plane crashes, you are pretty much guaranteed to die. Okay, that's just a fact of life, okay? And so in that sense, then we can be like, okay, that's something scary. I don't want that to happen. But what's the likelihood that it's going to happen? So let's actually look at things logically by the numbers, okay? In 2020, so roughly throughout the world, 100,000 commercial flights take off and land each day. Quite a few, right? Throughout the world. In 2020, there were 5 fatal accidents from commercial jetliners. So what this means is that essentially, if we take 100,000 and we times it by 365 days a year, then we actually get 36,500,000 flights, okay? So that's not gonna be exact, but yeah, say as a benchmark, there was 36.5 million flights in 2020, okay? And of that, 5 of them were accidental things where people died, right? That makes a percentage chance of you dying in an aircraft based on 2020 numbers 0.0000136986301. So pretty much it's like inconceivably small percentage chance that you're going to die if you get into an airplane, okay? There's a near 100% chance that it's going to take off and it's going to land, okay? I know it's scary, but realistically, like, just look at the numbers. And so even if you go to the airport, you know, like, look at all the flights on the board that are taking off. It's like the thing where you like go to find what gate you're at. Look at that and be like, oh, like, they don't seem to be, you know, people don't seem to be freaking out. All the people who live here, you know, all the people who work here, they haven't seen really airport accident, like a plane crash, you know, they're cool with it. And the same thing can be done with COVID. So look at the numbers behind COVID. And I'm gonna read some off to you right now. These are just from Ontario because I calculated these in a previous video. So they're pretty old. These numbers are old. Don't start spitting this as fact just yet because they're a little bit aged. You know, I calculated these in March or something like that. So here's what we have in Ontario, where I'm from. Okay, we have total cases of coronavirus, 466,733. Long-term care cases. And then we also want to calculate the people in the long-term care homes because they're most at risk. So we're actually going to take it, provided you're watching this and you're not in a long-term care home, we're actually going to remove them from the equation. So in long-term care homes, we've had 15,151 cases. Total deaths in the entirety of Ontario, my province, 8,079. And the total deaths from people who were actually in long-term care homes, that is 3,918. So doing some calculations, 466,733 minus the long-term care people, we're left with 451,582 cases. Outside of that, we have, and in terms of deaths, we have 8,079 minus 3,918 from the long-term care homes, and we're left with 4,161 people died out of 451,582 infected. Okay, so that makes the chance of death, if you're not in a long-term care home, 0.009. So less than 1% chance. And then another thing that we have to take into account with this situation is those people, that number is including people who are 60 years old, 65 years old, who aren't in a long-term care home, right? This includes all the people who are horribly obese. These includes all the people who have different underlying conditions and things like that. So if that's not you, if we're just saying like, hey, you're a regular 20 to 40 something person without diabetes or anything like that, then that's going to actually make your percentage chance of something bad happening to you with COVID like well below that 1%. So even like including all those other people, you're already below 1%. And then another thing to keep in mind is like even just the testing situations with people. So a lot of the people who have been infected, they didn't get tested. So where I am right now in Mexico, it costs like $40 for a test. So like whatever the numbers of Mexico are, they aren't accurate. No one's getting tested, so their percentage chance of people who have died, who got coronavirus, they're gonna be a lot higher. And same with wherever you are, like the people who are actually infected is probably 10x more than the people who actually got tested. So that's going to bring it down even further. And you can look up stuff like this and just help yourself be like, oh yeah, okay, this isn't as big of a deal as I'm being told it is. Because remember, the news is trying to keep you in fear. The government, they're trying to keep you afraid as well because, hey, like, we can't lock everyone down. We can't make it so that we have more control and censorship on people's lives are just going about their day, right? So if you have anxiety around this is actually getting to you. Do these sort of things and it will help you greatly. And remember from there, don't just feel scared. Don't just feel anxiety because someone says like, oh, this is a big deal. This new Delta variant is coming in, or this new variant, or now the flu is mutated with the coronavirus. And it's, whatever they're going to say to you, remember, don't get scared just because someone's telling you to get scared, because there is, if you look behind the curtain, there is a profit motive behind you being afraid. So if you're scared, there's a benefit to the powers that be. So remember that if you just look through things actually scientifically and logically, and you actually make some calculations, you're going to be able to find, okay, this is actually the percentage chance of something bad happening here. So this is in regards to pretty much if you get the corona and you're scared, this is how we reduce that. So outside of that, just make sure you do what you can do. Control what you can control, which is your health. You can do your best to supplement. You can do your best to go outside, get some sun, do some exercising, do things that are going to boost your immunity, drink lots of water, just like simple things like that. And then from there, we can't control everything, so we gotta just let it go. And that is going to be the answer to that. Control what you can, worry about what you can control, and then let go of everything that is outside of your control. Don't let the thoughts and the fear from other people invade you. One thing to keep in mind, a little quote here that I'm going to butcher, is a ship doesn't sink by being out on the water, okay? It's surrounded by ocean, and a ship doesn't sink by doing that. A ship only sinks when the water comes inside of it, and from the inside it's filled with water. So all the negativity, all the fear, all the everything that's invading you, invading the world or surrounding you, you don't have to worry about that, okay? As long as it doesn't get inside of you, it can't do anything to you. It can't do anything to hurt you. So protect that, protect your mind. Don't be porous to the negative ideas and the fears and the anxieties of other people, and you will be fine from there. So let me know in the comments if this helped you, what you're doing, how you're feeling, how you're doing about the anxiety with coronavirus, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.